The wildest part about Talladega this weekend wasn't just the crash. It wasn't even the number of cars involved. It was how fast everything flipped from a controlled, calculated race into total chaos that nobody could escape. And right in the middle of it all was Bubba Wallace. 1 second, he's leading the field, controlling the pace, doing exactly what you're supposed to do at a superspeedway. The next second, he's sideways, the pack is collapsing, and suddenly half the field is wiped out in what turned into one of the biggest wrecks of the season. Smoke everywhere, cars torn apart, and a race that instantly lost any sense of rhythm. 26 cars collected. Red flag out. And just like that, the entire story of the race changed. But here's the thing. What happened after the crash might have been even louder than the crash itself. So to see exactly how this race exploded into chaos and what really caused it, watch the full breakdown till the end. And before we break all of this down properly, if you're into real NASCAR breakdowns, controversy, and behind-the-scenes insight, make sure you subscribe to NASCAR Nation News and drop a like on the video. Let's get into it. So to really understand this, you've got to go back a bit. Because this race didn't start as chaos. Early on, Talladega actually felt controlled. NASCAR stretched the first stage, trying to reduce the usual fuel-saving chess match, but even then, drivers were still playing it safe. It wasn't aggressive. It wasn't desperate. It was calculated. Green flag pit cycles, manufacturer teamwork, everyone just trying to stay clean and stay in position. Nobody wanted to be the guy who ended their race early. Stage 1 wraps up, things look stable, and you can feel that underlying tension building, but it hadn't snapped yet. Bubba was right there, in the mix, not dominating but definitely a factor. Ford looked strong. The field was tight. Everything felt like it was setting up for a classic Talladega finish. Then Stage 2 begins, and the entire tone shifts. The patience disappears. Now the pushes are harder, the lanes get tighter, the gaps shrink, and suddenly every driver is fully committed. That's always the danger zone at a superspeedway. You go from controlled to aggressive in an instant, and once that switch flips, there's no easing back. At nearly 200 miles per hour, inches apart, one small mistake or one slightly mistimed push is all it takes. And on lap 115, that's exactly what happened. Coming down the back stretch, Bubba Wallace is leading. He gets a strong push from behind. Ross Chastain right on his bumper. It's the kind of shove you need to stay out front, but it's also the kind that can go wrong in a split second. The contact unsettles the car. Bubba starts to lose control. He drifts up toward the outside wall. The pack behind has nowhere to go. Cars are 3 wide, maybe even 4 wide in spots, and when one car breaks loose at the front like that, it's over. The entire field stacks up. Cole Custer reacts, others try to avoid it, but there's no space, no time. Within seconds, turn 3 turns into a wall of smoke and destruction. Cars spinning, slamming into each other, sliding down the track. It's the big one in every sense, and you could feel it the moment it started. That sickening chain reaction where you know it's not stopping anytime soon. Now here's where things get complicated, because depending on who you ask, the cause of that wreck looks very different. One side looks at the replay and says it's simple. Chastain pushed too hard. That's it. End of story. You can't hit the leader like that at that moment and expect it to stay stable. The other side sees something else. They see Bubba moving late, trying to manage both lanes, maybe being a bit too aggressive with the block in a situation where the margin for error is basically zero. And that's why this wreck exploded into such a debate. Because it's not clean. It's not obvious. It's not one of those wrecks where everyone just shrugs and says, "That's Talladega." This one had a clear focal point. And that focal point was Bubba Wallace. The damage list alone tells you how big it was. Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano, Kyle Larson, Brad Keselowski, William Byron, big names, championship contenders, all caught up in it. Some completely done, others barely hanging on. But either way, their races were effectively over the moment that wreck unfolded. And from that point forward, the race never really recovered its flow. Yes, it continued. Yes, there was still a finish. Carson Hocevar managed to survive everything and pull off a huge win in a late shootout, beating Chris Buescher in a close finish. It should have been the headline, a breakthrough moment, a feel-good story, but it wasn't, because everything kept circling back to that wreck and Bubba's role in it. Then social media did what it always does. It exploded. Within minutes, opinions were flying everywhere. Some fans immediately blamed Bubba for wrecking the field. Others defended him, pointing at the push from behind. Some said he was blocking too aggressively. Others said he had no chance once he got hit. And that divide just kept growing. You had people calling for accountability, questioning his decisions, even suggesting he shouldn't be in that position. And then you had others stepping in saying, "Wait a second, did we all just watch the same replay?" Because from their perspective, this wasn't about one driver messing up. This was about the nature of superspeedway racing right now. And honestly, that's where things start to shift. Because when the drivers themselves started speaking, the tone was very different. Ryan Blaney didn't come out blaming Bubba. Not even close. He described it as chaos, cars bouncing off each other, one mistake triggering everything else. No single driver, just a system that eventually breaks under pressure. Joey Logano took it even further. He basically said this is inevitable with the current package. You either save fuel and ride around, or you push hard and risk crashing. There's no middle ground. And when everyone chooses aggression at the same time, this is what you get. Even Kyle Larson pointed out the same pattern. The race goes from calm to intense with no balance in between. And once that intensity kicks in, it's only a matter of time before something goes wrong. So now the conversation shifts. Because instead of who caused it, the question becomes, was this always going to happen? And that's a much bigger issue. But then Bubba's reaction added another layer to everything. On the radio, right after the crash, it sounded like frustration directed outward, like he felt the move from behind caused it. But when he got in front of the cameras, the tone changed. He talked about the car being unstable, about needing to handle pushes better, about learning from it. He didn't completely deflect blame, but he didn't fully own it in the way some fans wanted either. And that disconnect, that difference between the immediate reaction and the public one, caught attention. Some fans felt like he softened the message. Others thought he was just trying to give a measured, professional answer in the moment. But either way, it added fuel to the fire. Then came the broadcast controversy. During his interview, there was a bit of a delay before it started, and Bubba opened with a sarcastic line about waiting. It wasn't anything extreme, but it had an edge to it. And when clips of the interview were posted later, that part was missing. Now suddenly, people weren't just debating the wreck, they were questioning whether the broadcast trimmed out the most uncomfortable moment. And when fans are already frustrated with coverage, commercials, and presentations, something like that doesn't go unnoticed. It made the whole situation feel even messier. So where does that leave everything? The honest answer is somewhere in the middle. Yes, Bubba Wallace was at the center of the wreck. He was leading. He was the car that got turned. That part is undeniable. But the full picture is bigger than that.